everyone, I'm Steven Sigmund.
And I'm Mike Massinio.
And this is the Weekly Movie Throwdown, where each week we look at two films that we think belong in the same conversation, maybe share a little bit of DNA, and we talk through which one is better. This week, we're rounding out February with two more rom-coms, this time featuring ensemble casts. It's from 2009, He's Just Not That Into You, going up against 2011's Crazy Stupid Love. And before we get into that conversation, we have a few wins of the week to discuss. Mike, what are your wins of the week this week?
Yeah, so I saw two movies in the theater this week that I liked. The first was Crime 101, which I feel like was a movie designed in a lab specifically to appeal to people like me. It's just, it's like right in my wheelhouse as an old man at this point. A crime movie, conflicting cop and robber things. People were comparing it to Heat, I guess just because it takes place in LA and it takes the perspective of both the cop and the criminal, but that's not really the vibe I got from it, to be honest. I don't feel that. I felt like a wholly separate thing. And I have to say I enjoyed it. It works for me. Those kind of movies, I dig those movies. What can I say? You throw in a vintage Mustang and you got me. So
it was fun. I definitely
fun.
See the Heat comparisons. I mean, there's a shot in Heat of Neil standing at his apartment looking out over the blue ocean that's directly from this painting. The artist is like Alexander Coville, I think, or something like that. That painting is literally hanging in Chris Hemsworth's apartment in this movie. So
all right, fine. There are some parallels to fine, be that way. All right.
But
you got me.
I agree with you. It was a lot of fun. I really liked watching it.
Yeah, it was well done. And again, it's based on a book by Don Winslow, who I think is one of the great crime writers of the last 2 decades. So can't go wrong with that. The other movie I saw was Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, which again feels like a movie that is designed specifically for me, like a movie about AI bringing about the end of the world starring Sam Rockwell. I just feel like they really made movies for me this week. And this movie I enjoyed the hell out of. I think that Haley Lou Richardson is really having a moment because I saw her in Ponies and she was really good in that, and she's really good in this. And it just so much of this movie spoke to me. Like it really, it was really a movie of the moment. And I appreciate trying to attack something like this head on, but just taking a huge swing at it. It's just kind of an audacious, crazy swing at this, and it doesn't totally work, but it works enough, and I appreciate the effort a lot. So I thought it was a good time.
I agree. I saw it a few weeks back, and it was really delightful. I mean, these are two non-IP films.
Yeah, as delightful as a movie about the end of the world can possibly be, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was excited at the promise of cats, but the cat we got was nightmare inducing. So that kind of threw me off. I felt like the end kind of went a little off the rails, just big in a way, but you kind of need that. But overall, I mean, Gore Verbinski, he's back, doing the things he does. And both films, a lot of fun this week. I'm with you.
Yeah, you're right. The end of the movie, I mean, as you're watching it, you keep thinking, how are they going to land this plane? Because it's really kind of out there. So what are you going to do? And I think it's hard to satisfy everyone with an ending. But again, they went broad and big in a way you may or may not expect. So I appreciated that too.
My wins of the week are, so Barnes & Noble had a sale on 50% off on films from a UK distributor called Radiance Films. They really specialize in world cinema, so stuff from all over the place. And I'm trying to beef up my world cinema vocabulary a little bit. So I really leaned into this sale and bought a bunch of stuff. The first thing I want to talk about, because I only got to watch 2 of them, is this film called Panic in the Year Zero. It's actually directed by Ray Milland, which is crazy, but it's from 1962. And the premise is this family in Los Angeles just takes like a lovely camping trip. They have a camper attached to their car. They're headed out up the hills And it's a fine day, and as you do, nuclear war breaks out. So they're kind of stuck in the mountains as civilization starts to crumble. And it's really about Ray Milland, like just protecting his family as people get crazier and crazier. Um, he has to be a Virgo in this film because his level of preparedness is like spot on, and that gives me hope for when it inevitably happens to us, because I like to think I'm gonna be pretty good at planning ahead and having rations and provisions and just finding danger. But it's quite something. I mean, this is 1962, so it's very sort of atomic age, Cold War fear that comes out of the 40s and 50s, and just a lot of fun. It's really quick at like 102 minutes, but I really enjoyed watching it. His son in the movie is Frankie Avalon, so they're really kind of like leaning into Frankie Avalon before all the beach blanket stuff.
Wow.
So yeah, just a lot of fun, and a very dark subject matter, but it's 60 years ago, so it's not as heavy as it might be if it were made today. The other film that I watched was called The Ogre of Athens, and this is from 1956. Turns out Greece has a really incredible film world, and they've never really had a movement like French New Wave or New Hollywood or anything, but there's a lot of stuff that's really good, and I'm just kind of finding it. And this is a film by the director Nicholas Kondoros, and it's about this guy who is just kind of a meek bank clerk and very anonymous, just kind of lives his life very kind of shut in and isolated. And on New Year's Eve, it's announced that they've found the identity of this crime boss called the Ogre of Athens, and they put his picture in the newspaper. No one's ever seen him before, and he's a dead ringer for this guy who's the bank clerk. So all of a sudden, this guy is getting attention from women. These sort of like low-life crime guys are giving him respect. And because his life has been so very isolated and anonymous, he kind of leans into it. And as with a lot of these mistaken identity films, it pretty much goes south. But this is very much a satire of crime films. It's very noir heavy. It reminds me a lot of, stylistically, of Touch of Evil, with a lot of like deep blacks and shadows and like kind of jarring close-ups. But it's just really a lot of fun. And this Radiance edition has an introduction from Jonathan Franzen, because it turns out he really loves this film and actually used some of the things in it as part of the narrative in his novel Freedom. So it's really, really cool. And I highly recommend it if you can find it. The Ogre of Athens. I don't know how available it is outside of this Radiance edition, but definitely worth seeking out if you want to have some fun. By the way, I'm probably gonna have a lot of foreign films in my wins of the week in the upcoming weeks. So prepare yourself.
I could always use some foreign film recommendations. As long as you let me borrow the DVDs, we're good.
Yeah, happy to give this to you. It's so good. And I have a bunch more I have one called Malapui, which is like this crazy genre film that stars Orson Welles, but it's Dutch, and
Really?
yeah. I don't even know how to get into that, but I'll probably talk about it next week because I'll have time to watch it. So, but that's it for this week. Let's put our wins of the week away and get into our conversation, which is going to be very different than those two films.
I'll say.
Let's talk about He's Just Not That Into You versus Crazy Stupid Love. This is an interesting pairing. I thought it would be fun to round out February with another rom-com. Well, we did. Ensembles. Both kind of explore modern romance and like the crazy making that comes with pursuing romance. And I think the effectiveness of these films is very different. But what do you think about do you have any relationship to these films prior to watching them?
I'm interested to see which one you think is better than the other. I've seen Crazy Stupid Love before. I'd never seen He's Just Not That Into You. I'm not even sure why. It seems like a movie that would have fit in my wheelhouse, especially because I really like Jennifer Goodwin. But I hadn't seen that, so this is the first time. Um, yeah, I do like the pairing because I find there are definitely some similarities, even to the fact that they both use "This Must Be the Place" by Talking Heads in the movie, which is really weird.
I was going to ask which one does it better. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy Stupid Love does it better because it's actually he's at a house, which makes it fit better, but it doesn't matter.
Out on a boat.
Yeah. So right. I remember a boat. Um. So yeah, I think the reason they both fit together as well is because the filmmakers involved in these. I just feel like both of these feel a little almost a little more like television than movies in some weird ways, if that makes sense. Um, and both of the filmmakers have either moved on to television or have worked in television. And so it almost feels a little more like episodic television, the way these stories are broken. And I know that both of these movies were also much longer, which makes a lot of sense too. You get the sense that you're watching something that's been pared down a bit. Whereas if this was a decade later, it's possible both of these movies would have been like limited series or something, that they would have gone to a
Yeah,
streaming
they're still
service.
2 hours.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
both
been
of them
expanded. But I know the original cut of Crazy Stupid Love was like 3 hours long. And you do feel like some things are missing. I genuinely think that these would have existed in a totally different form if they were made now. That's my feeling as I'm watching both of them.
I agree. I think, well,
except
off, I want to
and
say
add
that,
to the fact that they don't really make rom-coms anymore for movie theaters anyway. So they probably definitely
Right.
would be in different forms. This was kind of, we're still in the tail end of a peak rom-com period that's been going on for a couple of decades. So they're still able to get released in movie theaters and make decent amount of money, but we're definitely at the tail end by the time Crazy Stupid Love comes along.
Is this the same? Is Crazy Stupid Love 2011? Is that the same year as I Love You, Beth Cooper? I can't remember. Which we agreed killed the rom-com.
Right. I Love You, Beth Cooper was a little bit earlier, but so okay. What we said was that I Love You, Beth Cooper killed the teen rom-com. The adult rom-com still had a little more gas in it, and it was petering out a bit.
Right. I agree with you completely. I think He's Just Not That Into You in particular feels like a sitcom, and we'll get into why that is the case. But this is another week for me where I had an idea going into it, and I came out of it with a completely different idea. I thought He's Just Not That Into You was kind of a harmless little rom-com that stays in its lane and is light and quirky. I was really wrong because I find this film to be incredibly reductive to women. And I think the broad characterization of the emotions of women is just like maddening to me. Does it still get to some interesting places? Sure. But I think overall it just really disappointed me upon the rewatch. Whereas Crazy Stupid Love, on the other hand, I felt was like kind of more cinematic and more cohesive in the way it tells a story. I know that there's a history of television with both of the filmmakers, but Crazy Stupid Love felt like it belonged on a screen, more like a big screen, more than He's Just Not That Into You, because He's Just Not That Into You is so disjointed. I mean, there's really almost no connectivity in the stories, and that really makes it like perfect for a limited series, like you said. Right. So yeah, that makes sense.
He's Just Not That Into You just feels like it's trying to do almost too much. But what it comes down to as well is the guy that wrote Crazy Stupid Love, Dan Fogelman, who ends up working a lot more in TV. He's working on Paradise right now, but made This Is Us, which was a TV show that I really loved. But it plays into that I just think that he's good at finding the heart in his characters. And whether or not you think they're fully fleshed out or not, I just think he's good at getting to something in those characters that makes you either relate to them or like them. And that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. So I think that's what makes that movie work. I was thinking of myself, though, as I was watching Crazy Stupid Love, that I think it falls into two categories. That if you liked it, you think that it almost feels like the word Shakespearean kind of came to mind. Like it very much feels like a Shakespeare farce where you have all of these disparate elements that come together in a crazy way at the end, and then like hilarity ensues, like that kind of thing, which you could see as Shakespearean. Or if you hated it, you would basically see it as really bad sitcom tropes that all fall into each other, that barely make sense. And I think that I'm somewhere right in the middle of that, where I think depending on when I'm watching it, I feel either way about it. But again, because I really like these people, it makes me forgive a lot of what does or doesn't work in the movie, like taking nude photos and giving them to a child, like those kind of things. It makes me more forgiving of those kind of moments.
I agree. Let's lean into Crazy Stupid Love since we're talking about it. Let me just give a quick overview of it so that people know. Cal Weaver pretty much has a great life, and then it's turned upside down when his wife Emily tells him she was unfaithful and wants a divorce. And what I think is really good about this is kind of this premise where you have this middle-aged, newly single man thrown into this world of dating after being with only one woman. And then he kind of has this mentor who's very well versed in this world. And just that it almost becomes a buddy comedy for the middle part of it. And I think that with those two actors is really, really fun. And the writing, in comparing the writing of these two films, I mean, Crazy Stupid Love feels 10,000 times better to me. But the premise based centrally around a family, I think is really good. The structure of it makes it more interesting to me. I mean, you see the connectivity of the characters, whereas you don't really see that in He's Just Not That Into You all that much. So yeah, I think, you know, Crazy Stupid Love for me just works a lot better. It really is more cohesive and just like I don't know if it's a better caliber of actor, but I think it's a better caliber of material with which the actors can work, and a trust of the actors from the director that I think works really, really
100%.
well.
I think that for He's Just Not That Into You, you see two tropes that they're using to try to make the movie come together, which they use those title cards, which are, I think, chapters from the book, because this movie is based on a self-help book. So when you have to throw in title cards to kind of give you an idea of how it fits together, flag one. Flag two is they steal the little interview vignettes from When Harry Met Sally, and throw it in there to try to give you a broader overview of things. And so it's like they're just trying to figure out a way to connect these stories, which you're right, which feel almost like sitcom episodes, trying to put them together. And they use these two devices to try to make this a cohesive story. And, those are two red flags for me. The number one red flag of a movie, like I told you, is when you start with like 2 minutes of narration to explain something to you. A movie's going to be terrible when they do that, because that they can't show you anything, so they have to tell you. This didn't have that, so that's good. Although it opens with the voiceover explaining how dating issues arise in the first place from the time that you're very young, being told. So in a way, it does kind of have that as well. It's laying out the whole premise for you from the get-go. So yeah, seeing all those things kind of makes you realize that you're watching a story that people wrote some stories they like, and they're trying to jam them together into something.
Yeah, and Crazy Stupid Love just doesn't have that. I mean, it has separate stories, but really it's all part of one thing. And really outside of the Emma Stone character of Hannah, that's kind of a reveal, but that everybody's connected. And that feels almost like a TV show too, where you have like just a wide swath of characters that you're following, because episodic television, you have to focus on different characters to kind of keep things big and like keep a story going. And this really does that. So I guess they're both pretty episodic, but I think Crazy Stupid Love really handles that in a smarter way. And just like you said, Dan Fogelman, I mean, he's like kind of a master of that. So it really makes sense that it's going to work. And
yeah, and he does that to a much better degree when he gets to This Is Us, by taking, the show starts by showing you these three characters that you don't actually know how they connect yet. It's showing you four stories that you don't know what the connection is until the end of the first episode, and then you see how it all comes together. So you could almost see that he's workshopping how to put stories like this together in Crazy Stupid Love, which ends up really working for him when he brings it to television.
He did a film. I don't know if he just wrote it or if he wrote and directed it, called Life Itself. That was like
he wrote and directed
one
that.
of the
He's
big
written and
early
directed
releases.
only two movies. That one and Danny Collins, which was that movie with Al Pacino from 2015, which I think is a very underrated movie and a very subtle Al Pacino performance, which we don't get a ton of
Oh,
anymore. Yeah, I recommend it. It was an enjoyable movie.
I remember vaguely Life Itself because that was like a big Amazon release. It was one of the first films that they had produced, and really all I remember about it, and all I need to remember about it, is that Olivia Wilde is in it. But I do recall vaguely that it kind of has these episodic things of different characters, and they kind of meet up again, like This Is Us, where you don't know that the stories are connected yet. So maybe that's kind of his thing that he leans into and does really well, and I think it really, really works in Crazy Stupid Love.
Well, now we
Um,
know if they make a sequel to Crash, we know who they're going to bring in to make it.
don't give them any ideas. Yeah, please don't. Uh, so let's stick with Crazy Stupid Love and talk about the performances, because I think those are what really sell the material. And you have Steve Carell at the center of it, just playing a Steve Carell character and doing it so well. This is really his wheelhouse. The Office is happening. He's coming off a few years removed from the 40-Year-Old Virgin and Get Smart, where he plays these kind of ding-dong characters who are kind of earnest and a little oblivious and a little naive. But then he's also in Dan in Real Life and brings a little more of like
That's the one
the
that I was going to
groundedness to
mention,
it.
that you're
Yeah.
seeing. He'd been making Anchorman and Dan in Real Life a few years earlier, and this kind of really brings together all the elements of what he does really well. And I think this movie is important for him, because I do think it kind of puts him in a slightly different place, where he's not really playing the sad sack that he was in Dan in Real Life, and he's not playing an idiot anymore. He's playing a fully fleshed out character that can have elements of both. And once you see that part of the actor in him, he starts getting better and more serious roles from here.
Yeah, and thank goodness, because he's kind of a sneaky, versatile actor. I mean,
I
even in
agree.
this
And
film,
the other
he's
thing, I don't know if
bringing
you
that.
saw, was that this was the first movie that his production company produced. And
Hmm,
so I think
I didn't know that.
he saw that as well. I think that he saw in this script an opportunity for him to really showcase all the things that he does well. And I think it paid off for him. So yeah, I think that definitely this helped showcase a lot of what he's really, really good at.
Yeah, it really runs the spectrum of styles of acting, because well, I mean, just in all the films we mentioned, but you really get that thing that he does well where he overcompensates. Like, it's almost directly from the 40-Year-Old Virgin, where he learns how to talk to women, goes out and just completely makes a fool of himself because he goes too far in the wrong direction. He does that here as well. But then when he course corrects, he's a confident guy, and he's a good guy. And it really, you really connect with him. And I think the direction is a big part of that. The scenes with him and Ryan Gosling, and I think the scenes with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone too, you sit in them a little longer. And I think that's a big thing that He's Just Not That Into You lacks, is that there's so many people that it's moving so quickly. But with Crazy Stupid Love, you have these amazing actors and you get to just live with them, and the directors let them cook, and they pull it off. So Steve Carell, of course, but also Ryan Gosling in this. And, you know, I want so badly to not like this guy. I don't know what it is about him. I just don't want to like him, but God damn it, every time he gets me.
Well, that's the beauty of Gosling, that he is, his look is of someone you think you're going to despise, but he ends up being
Yeah.
so charming that you can't help it. And we talked about Carell, what this may or may not have done for his career, but this is a huge movie for Ryan Gosling, because up to this point, he really had only done dramas. He played some quirky characters, done some indie films, but a lot of serious stuff. And we know he worked in television when he was a kid. There's a Mickey Mouse Club, that he probably had some comedy chops in him. But he hadn't really shown that on screen yet. And this was a revelation to a lot of people, that he could be really funny and also hold his own with someone like Steve Carell. And I think it really changed the course of his career, and will allow him to move into sillier stuff, which it turns out he's very good at.
like Carell, he's surprisingly versatile. I mean, like you said, he has that look, and I think that look, he has movie star looks, and you associate him with movie stardom and just the role of a movie star. Almost like Brad Pitt, he kind of can be a character actor too. This year is a perfect example of that because side by side with this, you have Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive, which is a completely different character. I mean, he beats a man with a hammer. You know, they're very different tones. And he continues that relationship with Refn at the same time as he's moving into this comedy. So he's really going down two paths at the same time. And thank goodness for us because we're doing like 3 Ryan Gosling films over the next month. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But he just really, really good as the asshole in this. And then when he has to be vulnerable, he also pulls that off.
Yeah, and it uses his looks in a way where it's almost played for a joke, like how good looking he actually is almost played as a joke, which again, it takes a certain kind of actor to be self-depreciating about looking good. But when you like, I like the scene with Emma Stone where she makes him take off his shirt and then it's almost like he's embarrassed by it and he's like, can I please put my shirt back on? There's just something about that scene where it's almost like he's embarrassed about how hard he's worked to look the way that he does. And it takes a certain kind of actor to play that where you don't come off like a pompous jerk, where he's genuinely uncomfortable now. And it's just, yeah. And another actor playing it a little too over the top, it can come off as stupid or crass. But he walks a fine line with that in this. Because he knows that that he, looks like a movie star. But he kind of downplays it every chance that he gets in this.
It's almost his character is satire up to that point,
right?
Of this douchey guy in a bar picking up women. But then in that moment, we see a first sign of vulnerability and like embarrassment, like you said. And that just opens a floodgate for this completely different character. And I guess that's the change that you would want a character to go through in the film. So he does pull it off really well. And as much as I don't want to like it, I do.
Yeah. And as I think of like the 3-hour cut of this movie, I think that there could have been more with that. Because you're trying to tell a lot of story here. I think that he could have done more to kind of establish a little bit more of what his backstory was, before you get to him having the conversation with Hannah. I think there was a bit more there, but you have to play it within the time you have. And that's why you have to rely on your actors to be able to sell something. They probably need a little more meat on its bones to make you care a little more about him. But because he's so good in the movie, I think you let a few things go where some of it feels a bit rushed or you don't know a lot about him in the first hour and you're willing to forgive that, because you find yourself liking him against your better judgment. You find yourself liking
him. I know. Oh, it's so frustrating. I think that scene with Hannah, they do a really good job of telling you a lot of the things you need to know. So I don't know if it was rewritten or what after they cut out an hour of the film, but he really establishes why he is the way he is. And it also really shows you why he approaches Steve Carell in the first place. You get a sense that he really sees his father in him. And, he talks about his dad being like the nicest guy in the world, kind of like no match for his mom. And not that that's the case with Carell and Julianne Moore, but, he kind of sees these traits that his dad had. And that's why he approaches Steve Carell and just kind of wants to like correct history in a way by maybe like by proxy making his dad more confident or something. So I think that's like a really sweet moment that reveals a lot, and credit to, Dan Fogelman again, because that's on the page and really does a lot in a little amount of time to explain everything we've just seen for an hour plus. So it's just good writing.
Yeah. The only negative I can really say about this movie, well, there are a few negatives. We get into the nitpicking things, but
save it for the weaknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're talking about weaknesses now. I just feel like the characters, when you bring Julianne Moore into a movie, you always hope there's more for Julianne Moore to do. That's all I will say. That unfortunately, because this story is centered around the two male leads, she ends up getting relegated to the background a bit. And, I always feel like you can give Julianne Moore some more work to do in the movie, and that would be great. So, because I enjoy seeing her on screen, I thought that the few scenes they have together as well are really good. That Carell and Julianne Moore are good chemistry together, and it would have been nice to have seen some things, even in flashbacks, see something about what their family life was before, get some kind of idea of what their dynamic was like before she decides to separate from him. Again, this is just. But do I want a 3-hour version of Crazy Stupid Love? I don't think so. So you have to make choices. But yeah, a little more between them would have been nice, and a little more of her. But you get what you get.
I think, she's coming off The Kids Are All Right, which was another film and like sort of a dramedy type thing where she played a parental figure. And, in both of those films sort of turned the volume down a little bit from what Julianne Moore usually does, because she really goes for it a lot of the time. And the thing that, as you're talking about this, I think about, and especially when it comes to like 3-hour films of interconnected love stories, is Magnolia, where she plays Jason Robards' wife, and it like turned up to 12 in that movie. But that's a great example of her sort of being front and center in an ensemble like this. And I think now that I'm looking at Magnolia next to this, there are a lot of similarities, I almost want to say, but very different films. So I like that she's in both of them, and definitely bringing different energy here. But I think, to your point about seeing that backstory, you do get little hints of it in the writing, and in particular when they're waiting to talk to Robbie's teacher, who turns out to be Marissa Tomei. They have these great little jokes, this kind of banter between them that maybe is like the stuff that kind of died, that led her to seek out David Lindhagen. And, you're seeing a little bit of that come back.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They say his name 19 times in this movie. But he, I think in that moment, you're seeing kind of the stuff from the beginning that made them get together and that made their marriage so good. And maybe it's because Cal has changed, or maybe because she's, gone through this, what she calls a midlife crisis. But you see a little bit of that coming back, and maybe, just being separated for a while sort of made them appreciate things they started to overlook. So, yeah, I think they could have done more with it, but
well, because it's just a matter of the focus of the movie. Because she does say that she thinks she's going through a midlife crisis, and so seeing her character a bit more evolved to kind of see what she's actually going through that caused her to do something, incredibly reckless, probably against her character, who she normally had been. So it would have been nice maybe to see a little bit of that, just to get a little more of what she was actually going through. But again, that's not where the movie's focused. So you get the movie that you get.
It's so funny the way you're introduced to them and it starts, because I mean, it's gotten to a point where she has this revelation or like explains what she's done, and then he just jumps out of a car. I mean, that is such a great way to get things rolling, no pun intended, with this movie. And I just think it's really, really clever.
This will probably get me in trouble, but I don't think my wife listens to the podcast anyway, so it's fine. But come on, we've all had conversations where we're sitting in a car with our significant other, and we're like, I have to get out of this conversation immediately. So, I mean, there's something definitely relatable in that moment.
Yeah. And we see it around this time too in Lady Bird. Lady Bird jumps out of the car as well. So
yeah,
maybe that's a thing of the moment, is hopping out of moving cars. I have to talk about Emma Stone too. I mean, she's great in this. I see her as kind of one thing, as sort of the witty, charming, smart woman. And that's what I get from her in most stuff. But it's almost like universal. It always works, no matter where you put her. And she does a great job of that here, of being a little more buttoned up for the first half of the movie and then letting that out. So you're getting a little bit of a different thing at the start. PG-13 Hannah is what she, talks about all the time. And then, she kind of just grows up a little bit, dumps Josh Groban, which is a great cameo. And then you're getting more of Emma Stone that we know from like Superbad and the A-List, and I really love her, and I think even though it always feels like Emma Stone to me, that character just always works. And I think she's expanding a little bit with the Yorgos Lanthimos stuff, where you're kind of losing her a little more, especially in Poor Things. But uh, she was fine as she was too. I love all of it. I'm really a big fan, and I think her and Ryan Gosling, there's a reason they've worked together so many times because they have great chemistry.
Right. This is the first time they work together, and you can see that they really have something, and clearly you see it down the road in La La Land. But they seem very comfortable working together, and you really like seeing the two of them together. But yeah, around this time, she is exploring some different things. I mean, because she'd been in Zombieland a couple of years before. I mean, Easy A was really the movie that broke out, which is a bit of a romantic comedy type of thing. But then this, and she takes the Gwen Stacy role in Spider-Man, which is a big swing. But then she ends up in Birdman a couple of years later, which is a pretty different role for her. So you can, I think she's trying out a bunch of different things here. Taking on some varied roles, even if you think she's still being Emma Stone in them, but she's definitely trying out a lot of different hats and seeing what works. And I think that helps lead her to where inevitably she gets to, which is an Academy Award. So
yeah, I think Emma Stone works, in whatever. Like you write something with an Emma Stone character, and she's the one you're going to put in it, whether it's Spider-Man or Easy A or whatever. It's that energy, and it just always really seems to work. So I'm always happy to see her.
I was always confused about the fact that she played Gwen Stacy instead of Mary Jane Watson in Spider-Man, because she actually has red hair. So they hired a person with red hair, and then they dyed it blonde to play Gwen Stacy, which I thought was funny. That was a Spider-Man. That was a comic book nerd break just for a second. We can come back now. Anyway.
Well, Spider-Man segue to Marissa Tomei, who's also in the Spider-Man movies. She's in this pretty limited use, but she's incredible as again like a real cartoon.
Could we have seen more Marissa Tomei? Of course. When you have Marissa Tomei in a movie, you want to see more of her as well. But I mean, she utilizes every minute that she's in this movie. It's always nice to be reminded what an enjoyable actor that she is.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen her play a character as broad as this. She's always like,
well, did you see the movie Only You with Robert Downey Jr.? Remember that movie?
No. Well, I know the movie, but I don't remember.
You should watch it. That is a broad movie. She is pretty broad in that one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But I also have to shout out John Carroll Lynch, who plays Jessica's dad, because this guy, I love this guy so much. We've seen him in Zodiac. We've seen him in The Invitation. He's in a bunch of Coen Brothers movies. I stood next to him in line at the post office one time.
Did you?
Really, really just love this guy.
I just saw him in Ballard. He's in Ballard, that Bosch spinoff on
That's right.
Amazon. And he's really good in that. Him and Jim Rash play a couple, which is really fun because the two of them are just fun to see, and see them together is a great time. But
he's so versatile and just a lot of fun every time he's on screen, no matter what he's doing. He's a big guy. He seems like he could be menacing, but he's also a teddy bear. Like, just so
here's my thing though. My if we're getting to complaints, we're not, but I'm jumping in anyway. That was the only thing that confused me a little bit. So you're friends with a couple, and your wife decides that you're picking one of the two, and you have no say in the matter. You have to stop immediately being friends with the person you've been friends with your whole life. That seems crazy.
Yeah,
I would have fought a little harder, don't you think? I would have tried a little harder. He just gives up completely. And meanwhile, she's the one that cheated on him. So how does she get the win? That seems totally unfair.
Well, his wife sort of seems like the one who wears the pants, played by Beth Littleford, who I remember from The Daily Show, which is kind of great. Don't see her too often, but I liked seeing her pop up. But the John Carroll Lynch character almost has his own arc, because that's him at the beginning, and then by the end, he's full of rage in a scene that I think is laugh out loud funny. That wrestling match in the yard is absolutely fantastic. I really just like enjoyed watching that. I
Well,
went
that
back and
to
watched it a
me,
few times.
that's where the Shakespeare thing kind of comes in. Like that feels
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. It feels like a Shakespeare comedy moment where all these things come
yeah.
together and then chaos ensues. So it's hard not to get that feeling. But yeah, and of course, my favorite part is where uh, Ryan Gosling takes off his rings immediately to punch David
Yeah.
Lindhagen. Like, it's just something great about and again, that's just a good acting moment. Just the way that he does that is, yeah, that part is laugh out loud fun.
I really love that whole scene. There's just like this pile of men, like arms flying, and really just a lot of fun. I mean, that summed up the movie. Getting to that point was really a great thing for me. Um, yeah, why don't we talked about the directing a little bit, but we never really shouted out the actual directors, who are Glenn Ficarra and John Requa, and both of them worked with Fogelman a lot. They're kind of a team, who brought this to the screen, like that This Is Us sensibility that you talked about. So
These guys, I mean, I can't get a beat on these guys because they
yeah,
made Bad Santa, which we've discussed in the past.
right,
They're movies that I despise. I
yeah,
really do not like those movies. And they made the Bad News Bears remake, which actually wasn't
we
terrible,
talked about on the show.
which we talked about on the show as well. And just some wild swings. And they make Jungle Cruise,
Yeah,
which I liked a lot more than you did. So I cannot get a handle on these guys. They make things I really like and things that I really do not like.
yeah, they're all over the place, but it seems like when they work with Dan Fogelman, it's really locked in. Maybe he's kind of running the ship and keeps them, on brand. So because the things he's worked on with them seem to be, for the most part, the most successful stuff they've done. Really, right? I mean, in a way that's respectable. Like Bad Santa is very popular, but it's popular for kind of the wrong reasons. And it's really only
Well,
popular for Billy Bob Thornton.
yeah, and then they randomly make Focus, that Will Smith Margot Robbie movie, which
Yeah,
that's
I
just
kind
kind
of
of
like that.
a bit of a left turn for them as well.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say how I feel about that movie because I genuinely don't remember. Like I don't remember it, which may say it all in
yeah,
in
right
that, but I
there.
don't really remember that movie enough to say if I liked it or not.
But yeah, I think what they do in this film, along with Fogelman, is, you know, there's a wide age range in this film, which I think can be like detrimental and helpful. And I think despite all of that, you have a lot of different tones. You have the teen angst kind of thing. You have the divorce drama. You have like the romance comedy. And I think they do a really good job of transitioning between those tones without a lot of awareness of it. There's a lot of coherence to the tone of this film. I would say that the Leo Tipton teenage thing, maybe it gets away from them a little bit, but
Can we? Yeah, we can
by
talk
and
about that in a little
large,
bit. That one.
eh, yeah. But I think outside of that, everything is handled very well, and tonally, the shifts feel natural. You're not jarred the way you are with He's Just Not That Into You, which I think is all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like they could have probably done a little bit without the young the boy subplot, the 13-year-old. Um, but I understand because in a way he's the the risk taker of the movie, which kind of inspires the idea of not giving up on your love. But when you introduce a character, getting caught masturbating to their babysitter, and then you kind of go from there. It's a lot. This kid takes a lot of broad strokes on that character. They don't always
No
work.
pun intended.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't always work. Sometimes it's a bit much, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think he's important because what you're seeing in him, I think it's kind of a circle where he's the example of a father that Ryan Gosling didn't have and is trying to compensate for. And so, he's kind of fixing Cal, and Cal in turn can be that good example for his son. So maybe there's kind of that lineage there that, makes it necessary, but I don't know. I
Well, I
mean,
totally
he
get
could have
it.
been a better example,
Right. Again,
because
totally
there's a fine
understand.
line.
Yeah. I get why the character is in the movie and it's necessary. I'm just saying the fleshing out of that character might have been a little bit better. We'll say
Yeah.
most of the cringe-inducing parts of this movie come from that character. But again, maybe that's necessary, and we need those cringe-inducing moments. That is again what the movie is.
He's a great example that there's a fine line between persistence and like assault or felony.
And stalking,
like,
yeah,
there's a point.
That's the thing too. It's borderline. And then again, to see him get rewarded at the end of the movie, that's only encouraging him. I don't know if that was a good idea at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the couple that I think if we're talking about the weaknesses, that's one of them for me is them. But even that I don't think is egregious. I think the way their story is handled, despite some of the shock of it, is still fine. It's not insane.
We'll put it this way. That is probably the part that makes it feel more TV-ish. That arc to me felt more like TV than any other arc of the movie, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, other than Cal, being that role model that Ryan Gosling's dad was, I don't know if you need it. I don't know. But it's there.
Well,
and
yeah, because
okay.
they need, he's the kid that believes in the grand romantic gesture, and so you need that part of it. They each represent something about what being a man is, or what love is, and try and bring all that around. So I don't think you have to take the character out. It's fine. We'll just say that the questionable parts of the movie come a lot from that character. That's all.
Yeah, that's really one of the only few weaknesses that I see in it. I mean, other than that, there are a million strengths that I find with just a really strong cast, great direction. I think the writing is really good. The dialogue is very sharp. And I just think that, every little nuance of it, like it's very thoughtful, whereas it feels like he's just not that into you, which we'll talk about in a minute. Didn't put as much thought into a lot of this stuff. And that's unfortunate. But
again, part of it, I think, might be from the get-go, from the source material of, making a movie from a dating self-help book. You're already trying to put a round peg into a square peg into a round hole, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway.
Do you have any strengths or weaknesses that you want to shout out as we wrap this one up?
Well, as we said, rewarding a borderline stalker never seemed like a great idea. I really liked the Dirty Dancing part, which I thought was very amusing. Like the idea that he does the Dirty Dancing hold and that always wins women over. I think that's kind of funny. Although it, by this point, almost feels a bit dated. I wonder if, a decade later, it makes any sense to anyone anymore. I don't know if anybody loves Dirty Dancing the way they used to. That pays off, though, that the original ending actually brought that back. I don't know if you saw some of the deleted scenes that the original ending of the movie takes place with Cal taking his wife out on a date. So it's almost like they're starting over again. And at the end of the night, they don't really know what to do. And he says that he has an idea, and it ends with them practicing the Dirty Dancing lift in the house. So it actually pays that off at the end.
Yeah.
So it's a little amusing moment, but they decided to end it at the school. But yeah, I like.
Yeah, and they ended at the school where Steve Carell is dressed like Neil McCauley from Heat. I don't know if you saw that, but he's in that gray suit, and I was like, okay, he's just going to go rob a bank downtown after
I hadn't even
this.
thought about that. Wow.
I have Heat on the brain lately. Okay, well then let's move on to He's Just Not That Into You. Quick overview of that. It's a group of kind of intertwining narratives. And it follows a collection of young Baltimoreans as they read and misread cues in the collective search for love. I just, we've talked about it already, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Let's get the key thing out of the way right out of the gate. That I love The Wire as much as anybody. Like, Wire is one of my favorite television shows of all time. And of course, The Wire takes place in Baltimore. And so my impression of Baltimore is one thing. And so it was shocking to see movies takes place in Baltimore where there's basically no black people at all.
So I grew up 45 minutes north of Baltimore, and Laura actually lived in Baltimore for a year. So I spent a lot of time there. Went to Orioles games all the time. This is set in a very specific area of town, in an incredibly gentrified area called Canton and Brewers Hill. It's right on the water by Inner Harbor, maybe a little east of Inner Harbor, but it's the wealthier area. It's completely gentrified, which is why there are no people of color in this film except for like the gay best friends who work for Drew Barrymore. I found that to be a big problem too, because this area is not huge. I mean, it's one neighborhood, and do they just live? They all live in this neighborhood, and if they do, why do all of these stories feel so disconnected? Because they're not. These people are meant to be friends, and there's very little that ties them together. I think they're almost independent stories.
The fact that 3 of the main characters work in the same office. So they live in this tiny little area of the same neighborhood and they work in the same office. Do you know what they do, by the way? I don't think they ever explain.
They write copy for Nutmeg. Yeah, that's like the whole thing.
What is their job? I don't even know what they're doing. But anyway.
I think they market, because women are in marketing. Like, that's kind of the stereotype. They're marketing or journalists. Like, that's pretty much the role women have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have to write copy for Nutmeg that takes like 3 days. That's what I learned from it.
But all they really do is obsess about their dating lives, because that's what women do. They just sit and obsess about all the little minutiae.
Yeah.
And
this whole premise, the premise is really absurd. I mean, what it sets up at the beginning with the flashback and the kind of introduction to what the thesis of the film is doesn't feel like it's explored all that much in the same way that it's being established. I don't know. It just feels all over the place. And again, you talk about the material coming from this book. Just a little bit of backstory. I have this book called "But What I Really Want to Do Is Direct" that I designed. It's by Ken Kwapis, the director of this film. So in this book, they talk about, the writers are Greg Behrendt and Liz Tosillo, and they were both writers on Sex and the City. He was there to basically provide the straight male perspective in the writer's room. And one day, everyone was sitting around, and one of the female writers was trying to make sense of something a man told her and trying to decode the messages he was sending her. Greg Behrendt spoke up and said, "Well, to me, it just sounds like he's not that into you." And so that kind of launched this idea. He and Liz Tosillo went out and wrote this book, which became a big bestseller. And then Ken Kwapis got a hold of it, took it to Flower Films, which is the production company of Drew Barrymore and Nancy Javoven, who is Jimmy Fallon's wife.
Right. And they had already worked on Never Been Kissed, the 2 writers, I believe. Which, that's, as a quick side note, is just a movie that a lot of people seem to really like that I never, ever liked. But go ahead.
So that's what Drew Barrymore did. She brought in these 2 writers, Mark Silverstein and Abby Cohen, to basically create a narrative structure with characters around a self-help book, because I don't know of another self-help book that's been turned into a movie. So they brought in these writers to create it, and then that's how we get to where we are. It feels like that. It feels like it came from an idea that wasn't very fleshed out in its execution. And it really does a disservice to the film, because it is so scattered that and so cartoonish that I think you don't connect with anybody, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And the reason it's unfortunate is that it is actually kind of shocking when you look at the cast of the movie and you stack it up, that, this period of time, like, 5 years later, you wouldn't have been able to get half the people in this cast in this movie. So you just have a moment in time where you have a bunch of, white, of course, because that's where we're going for now in Baltimore, but
white Baltimore.
Yeah. The super white Baltimore, but you're looking at the cast that they put together, and it's really, really strong. I mean, the fact that Jennifer Connelly even made a movie like this at this time is pretty shocking. I have no idea how they got her to agree, because it feels very unlike things that she would have been doing, before or
I
since.
wish she wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things we'll talk about, but that was one of the big problems that Ken Kwapis talked about in his book. He said there were two things that were an issue going into this. One of them was how to get these 9 different actors who have completely different acting styles on the same page with how they're presenting on screen. They're all in different scenes and have very little interaction other than couples. So I don't see what the big deal was. I mean, you just direct them individually. The big deal was, of course, at the center of it really is Jennifer Goodwin and Justin Long's characters, Gigi and Alex. And apparently those are 2 very different styles of acting, where she trained at like the Royal Shakespeare Academy and is very much about reading a script and executing the script, whereas he's more improvisational. This is kind of around the tail end of the PC and Mac commercials with John Hodgman. So that's sort of where his star is on the rise at this moment. So Kwapis really just kind of took 2 takes of everything, one on script and one improv, and just sort of edited in the best way to do it. But the other problem was, how do you take these people who are superstars? I mean, some of them are still on the rise, but you have Ben Affleck and Jennifer Aniston, and his concern was, how do you take them and make them everyday people to whom the audience will relate? And the answer is you can't. I mean, but his sort of thinking around it was, first, let's try different lighting, let's try different makeup to make them look like everyday people. That's just not going to happen. But then he also decided that the best way to do it was to have them really connect with the material and just be in the characters. And if they do that, you might lose Ben Affleck and you might see whatever his name was. I forget his name in the film, and then you might connect to that. I don't think that works at all. I mean, there's no moment where I forget that this is Bradley Cooper. So it really was never going to work. I don't think.
Yeah, it's true. Casting people like that actually might have done a disservice to the movie because it was very, like, when Ben Affleck and Jennifer Aniston are on screen and then you leave them, it's almost like, wait, why are we leaving them? They're the stars of the movie in a way. Like, it's really strange to see that. But going back, you're talking about Justin Long and Jennifer Goodwin. So this was the main selling point of this movie to me, because I remember them on a TV show, which was actually, I think, Jennifer Goodwin's like one of her very first things. It was a TV show called Ed, which I think I've discussed with you before, how much I love Ed. Like, it was one of my all-time favorite shows. There's only like a handful of people that watched Ed and loved it, and I was one of those people. And I'm so sad that it's not on DVD, because there are rights issues with it that most people can't even see it anymore. But it was a weird show. They tried to be 100 things, only half of them worked, but I don't care. I love that show. But Justin Long and Jennifer Goodwin played best friends in that show. They were both teenagers. They were both kids. And so they've known each other for a very long time. And I do think that you get that from this. I think that they're the only 2 characters in this movie that really connect to each other. I mean, you're telling me that
anybody.
Yeah, you're telling me the director kind of saw it differently, but I do feel like they have a connection. They're genuinely friends. They've been friends since then for about 7 years. So I get that, and I enjoy seeing them interact with each other. Everyone else, it's a bit 50-50, but I actually think if you would have made a movie that centered a little more on the 2 of them, you might have gotten a better movie.
This could be the Avengers of the He's Just Not That Into You cinematic universe. Each one of these couples could have their own interesting story by themselves, and then they assemble for this movie. Well, maybe not this movie, but a better movie. But you really just, those 2 have a lot of chemistry. They're kind of the center of the film ultimately. And yeah, you want more of them. Kind of. I mean, I don't really want more of anybody because I never want to watch this again, but those are the 2 who are the most interesting. I think that story, Justin Long is almost playing against type a little bit from what I know him as.
He very much stressed that he was actually going to be cast in the Kevin Connolly role. That's who they went to him for, which was more to his type, but he actually pressed to play this role instead because he said it was a very different, 2 reasons. One, it was a chance to play against type, who he's always kind of the nervous, stumbling kind of person. But also because him and Jennifer Goodwin were such good friends, he really wanted to play opposite her as well. And so he pushed to play this part.
In the end, he basically becomes that guy who really, which is kind of unfortunate because I like to see him change, but he's like Steve Carell, like learning how to talk to women. He goes so far in the other direction that it's comical. And again, I think the writing here is not solid, and that really affects the performances, but it's what we have. And you know, uh, despite the material, I would say that at least Jennifer Aniston does a fantastic job in this film.
I mean, by
She's
this
somebody
point,
who's always
I think, yeah, by this
good.
point, I feel like she could do a rom-com in her sleep. So,
Yes.
and she's Jennifer Aniston, so she doesn't have to do much here. She just kind of has to exist, and she's going to be great because, this is the kind of stuff she could do on autopilot.
She feels like she's the only one who gets the assignment because everybody else, and I'm looking at you, Bradley Cooper, feels like they're phoning it in almost. I mean, there is nothing from him. This is a guy who is making the decision to cheat on his wife, blows up his marriage, and there's very little from him in that. And this is the same year as The Hangover, where he plays a guy who's very different and very expressive, but here it's like nothing.
Can we just say that if you're married to Jennifer Connelly and decide that you want to get out of that marriage, you're immediately hateable anyway? It just seems insane. What's wrong with you?
I don't know with this character though, because there's almost some sort of like, I don't know, some sort of like interpersonal skills that she's missing. I mean, she's very cold and she's very bombastic in that she blows up over the smoking thing all the time. I mean, did that make her the way she is? Because he tells her she's been cheated on, and that of course that bothers her, but she channels that into the smoking thing, which is like a ridiculous thing to have be the narrative throughout a film. But then she immediately blames herself, which I feel is like a terrible, terrible thing to portray on screen. I mean, maybe that's like the female perspective, and that's what
again, I just think she wasn't given much to do here. So again, I'm not even really sure why she took the part. It just seemed shocking to me to see her there. but yeah, I don't think there's much on the page for her to work with. She's
the opposite of Bradley Cooper in that she will be at 0 and she will blow up to 11. There's no in between for her almost. It's like she's cold or she's on fire. And as soon as she gets on fire, she has to rein it back in, where she'll break a mirror. She immediately has to go clean it up. She'll throw all of his stuff down the stairs. She has to fold it all. So there's really just like this composure that she lets slip every once in a while. And that's completely counter to Bradley Cooper's character, who just feels like he's down the middle the whole time, no matter what's happening. And it's like maddening. Like, that doesn't work. I mean, how can this relationship work if they're like that? So again, that's the writing.
There you go. Maybe that's what they're trying to portray. Maybe you hit the nail on the head with that one. You focus on the Bradley Cooper things. Yeah, I feel like all of his subplots don't work either, because it's like Scarlett Johansson in this movie is pretty confounding to me. Again, I was shocked to see Jennifer Connelly in this movie, but I'm shocked to see Scarlett Johansson in the character she's playing in this movie. Like, I'm trying to think in my mind. I can't remember her ever playing a character like this. Am I crazy?
Homewrecker?
Like, not just a homewrecker, but the character is portrayed as very flighty, and there's just something about it she's very frivolous almost, and it's just kind of shocking to see Scarlett Johansson in this part. Like, I just feel like it's very against type for her.
I think it's the second part of a 2-part arc where she plays this character, because the year before she's in Vicky Cristina Barcelona, where the character feels very similar to me, where she's sort of lost. She wants to be a photographer. She ends up in this like throuple with Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz, but she's sort of this lost young woman who is just out there living life in a confused manner. She looks the same as she does in this. So it's like she just stayed in that character to come to this. But everything around these two films, you're absolutely right. Like she's completely different in everything I see. And
I guess she made
it's
those
kind of
two
shocking.
movies and decided, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And then she went back to wherever and decided to play an Avenger. But yeah, it's kind of shocking to see her in this kind of role. I don't know. So
She's really the only character, Anna, who has any sort of significant hand in two narratives. She's in the Bradley Cooper narrative and she's in the E from Entourage characters narrative. So other than that, like aside from Ginnifer Goodwin's friends telling her, like giving her advice, none of those characters have any significance in multiple narratives that I can think of. So it's interesting that she's kind of the center of two things in that character, because it's such a weird and like kind of unlikable character in a way.
a little bit.
Not as much as Bradley Cooper. I mean, he's very unlikable, which is kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing thing, where he's this handsome, unassuming, like
right. This is
guy.
actually, I couldn't stop thinking about this. If you're watching a movie and you see that Bradley Cooper and Ben Affleck are in it, who do you think is going to be the nice guy and who do you think is going to be the jerk? And it's kind of shocking to realize Ben Affleck is the perfect man in this movie. He's like the nicest person ever.
This is one thing I will credit this film for. These are very broad characterizations of people who are dating or people who live a romantic life. I've kind of been most of these people at one point in my life or another, where I've been like trying to understand signals, or I've been obsessive, or I've been like a safety net for somebody who's not really into me. So I kind of related to it on that level. I've also been the guy who's like, I don't want to get married. So I really related to the Ben Affleck character. But that's one thing, is like, as broad as these examples are, I think they do touch on a lot of different areas that could be executed a little better. But I did relate to a lot of the people in like a weird way.
I think it's all false. I mean, again, there's a movie where the book was a success, and I get the archetypes. I understand that most people have these feelings, but you're right. It's just too much story for a movie of this length, and too little time is able to be spent on any one of these stories that really makes you care enough about what's happened.
Yeah, I think you can almost eliminate Drew Barrymore. I think she's only in it.
But then also you throw in the subplot with the father, who inexplicably gets sick, and so you have that element as well. And so there's just a lot of things going on.
Well, I want more of that because it's Chris Christopherson.
Of course, that's
just
fine.
Awesome. But I almost think you can get rid of the Connor character too. I don't know if you need him. I mean, you need him for Anna, the Scarlett Johansson character, to kind of show that she's playing a guy and like leaning on him when she's not that into him. But does he need to be there? I don't know. You definitely don't need Drew Barrymore. I think you can, like, what if, I don't know, what if a woman sees his ad in the paper, goes to his open house because she likes how he looks, they hit it off, and that's how he gets it done. You know, like, you don't need that whole Drew Barrymore character, because every scene she's in is railing against technology. I guess it's fitting that she ends up meeting someone through a newspaper of all things, but it's just, that feels tonally like ridiculous to me, because this is clearly an era of flip phones. So I can't imagine the technological version of dating is all that prominent yet. I don't remember, but you know, if everybody's using flip phones in MySpace, they're not reaching out to find matches online as much as they make it seem here. So why do you need her in there?
Well, I mean, because she produced the movie, so
yeah,
she's gonna be in it somewhere.
Also,
she does a lot of her characters. Well, there's a lot of explaining things too, if you notice.
My God, everybody just explains things.
Yeah, she just keeps telling stories. So that's the role that she fills as well.
That's all the dialogue in this movie is. I have a friend who did this, or this is how dating works. Like I mean, this absolutely does not pass the Bechdel test, which is like the most rudimentary of measures for whether like a film is fair to women. And I think it's like 2 or 5 lines of dialogue are not about men. That's how you pass the Bechdel test. And this would not pass that.
Again, a movie like this, though, and especially because they brought in the little video vignettes, it makes you think of When Harry Met Sally and reminds you that you can tell a really good story about relationships in 90 minutes without 73 characters, half of which you don't care about. Like, you can really drill in into something and stay there. And that movie said a lot that this movie tries to say as well, and did it faster and a lot more entertainingly.
What's up with those vignettes? I know that they're, directly from the book, but at the end, when it's the characters who are in the film, it looks like a documentary. And all of a sudden, like when it was interstitial with people on the street, like Natasha Leggero is one of them. And I get that, like you're setting up the next chapter of the film. But at the end, it's shot with like a handheld camera interviewing the people from the film, and it's like a documentary. Like, who's making that documentary?
Even more strange is that on the DVD, I think there's an extra that's basically like a 30-minute like magazine thing of the interviews of all of these characters. I watched like 5 minutes of it. I'm like, I don't want to see this. Like, I don't want to see them talk more about themselves. Like, I'm not interested in that at all.
There's a funny little slip up that I didn't notice, but I read about online, where they interview Justin Long and Ginnifer Goodwin as a couple, and the clothes they're wearing are the same clothes they wore at the party in the middle of the movie where she went after him and he rebuked her advances. But you're supposed to think, it's down the road, but they shot it on the same day. So it's just kind of funny. Do we want to talk about anybody else in the cast? Kevin Connolly.
Don't want to talk about Kevin Connolly?
We don't need to. It's fine.
I'm good.
Yeah. I think we've really said kind of all we need to say about this ultimately. Strengths. What are your strengths for this film?
As I said, I think just for me, maybe just for me personally, but I like Justin Long and I like Ginnifer Goodwin, and I really like seeing them together. And it was nice for me. It was a nice little Ed reunion, and I really enjoyed that. I liked Ben Affleck and the Jennifer Aniston characters as well, but again, probably just because I like them as actors and like to see. I don't think they've been in anything else before or since together, and so I like seeing them together. But that's not a movie, really. It's like liking two characters for a couple of minutes because you happen to like them as actors doesn't necessarily mean you like the movie. But I enjoyed that. That was fine. That's really about it. I mean, it look, it also was a pretty breezy movie. I will say.
2 hour, 9 minute breezy movie.
Yeah, I will say for the length that it was, it didn't feel laborious to me. Like I really didn't feel that way. I felt like it moved at a pretty decent clip.
It really stalled for me with the Bradley Cooper stuff. Oh, by the way, in the original test screenings, this was longer too. And one of the really problematic things that they cut out is that when Jennifer Connelly goes to Bradley Cooper's office, they cut to a close-up of Scarlett Johansson in the closet, like crying. And people really were opposed to that in test screenings for some reason, so they cut it out.
Yeah.
What I would like to have seen in its place is cutting to his receptionist or his assistant who's outside that door and sees these two women walk out of his office in a matter of seconds apart and get into the elevator together. Like, that would have been really good. Because I just keep thinking, who's watching this happen in a business? That's crazy. For me, strengths, the cast is undeniable. I mean, what they do with the material, best they can, I guess. But, on paper, this is just an incredible cast. It feels a lot like, even though I haven't seen them, the Gary Marshall holiday movies that we talked about in the last couple of weeks. Like, if if Justin Long's party were a Cinco de Mayo party or something, this could have been a Gary Marshall movie. You put everybody at that party, and that makes it much more interesting to me. But as it is, just like they did the cast dirty with the script, I think, unfortunately, because I like Ken Kwapis, and I really wish this were better for him.
Well,
Despite
from here,
all that,
like we talked about, Ken Kwapis, I mean, where does he go from here? He does a lot of television,
yeah,
after this movie. And I think that maybe this was his calling card to show that he could do, he could work really well on television. So I don't know.
yeah. You can read all about it in this book that's really beautifully designed called But What I Really Want to Do Is Direct, by the way. Despite all of that, I think even though it doesn't feel like a solid script and it's kind of absurd and the tone feels off, I do feel like at the bottom of all of that, there's a little bit of realism in the things that these people go through. I mean, obviously they're going through them on a heightened level to be on screen, but I did connect a little bit to some of the things that they go through. Like I said, I mean, I feel like I've been these people, so that's a strength for me, despite as much as I'm saying terrible things about this. It is incredibly simplified and not a great portrayal for women, I think, and that really bugs me about it. It could have been much more nuanced in how it tells the story of these women instead of making them like hysterical stalkers or just over the top. I think it could have done a better job of that. I also think it could have been cut down by 20 minutes because even though it is breezy, I agree with you. I don't need 2 hours and 10 minutes of this. I just think you could really trim it.
What's funny? The feeling is that the movie either should have been longer or shorter. Like whatever the length they picked doesn't work, but it could have been either or.
I think in either direction, you can iron out some of the tonal issues, and it would have.
That's
been
what I mean.
film.
If it's shorter, you probably excise maybe a couple of stories, and you get something tighter. And if you made it longer, then you could get deeper into these characters and maybe make you care about them. And it ends up splitting the middle, and you get neither.
Yeah, doesn't work. You get like the Bradley Cooper character down the middle and not effective. Speaking of effective, why don't we move on to our head-to-head comparison before we wrap it up and look at the story effectiveness of these films? Is there one that stands out to you as having a better execution of the story, just all across the board?
Yes, yes, there is, as we have already discussed. Yeah,
yeah.
I think we know that
clearly. Crazy Stupid Love. Characters, again, I think it's undeniable that Crazy Stupid Love has just more fleshed out, more interesting characters.
Yeah, look, if you're making a 2-hour movie with 10 different characters, you're not going to be able to flesh those characters out as much as you need to. That's just math.
But if you make them part of the same family, you can do a little better job with it because they're not jumping from one thing to the next and there's no connectivity. And I think that's a big part of it. Which brings us to tone and consistency. Again, he's just not that into you, just very inconsistent. The tone is all over the place. Each couple kind of has their own thing that doesn't really connect, whereas Crazy Stupid Love really takes that premise by making them family, I think really does a great service to bring them all together and the cohesion is there. I assume you feel the same way.
I do.
Okay. This is interesting. Cultural staying power and iconic scenes because, I think he's just not that into you. Almost doesn't exist anymore. It's not something that I think it's really of its time. And when you're based on a popular book like that, unless you're The Devil Wears Prada, it's not really going to linger in the culture. And I think that this suffers from that because there's really not much about it. There are no think pieces on He's Just Not That Into You in 2026. Whereas Crazy Stupid Love, even though I feel like that might have a little bit of the same energy where it doesn't necessarily live as a film in the culture, Ryan Gosling in it very much lives on online. If you look up GIFs from this movie, there were 1,000 Ryan Gosling
Well,
gifts.
what I will also say is, as someone who kind of dabbles in like menswear websites and things like that,
Yeah.
um, that whole sequence of him helping Cal shop has become like a Bible for like how middle-aged men are supposed to dress. Like, I kid you not, like people reference this constantly. So that very much has hit a nerve and has continued to be a thing that people reference.
If only they had Larry Miller in there to
Right.
service the both of them, that would have been perfect. That's interesting. Wow. Do you wear t-shirts and sweaters and suits and jackets like that and feel like you're in a scuba suit?
I said I dabble in things. I didn't say I go crazy
Oh,
about anything, but I do read about some of this stuff sometimes. But yeah, the idea but the idea of buying a 44 when you should be wearing a 42, like those kinds of things, like, a really are things that menswear people really talk about, understanding how a suit is actually supposed to fit. So, and I have taken that to heart.
I couldn't imagine spending the kind of money that he must have spent on that stuff on clothing. Man, I wear a black t-shirt every day. Ryan Gosling would not approve.
Yeah. I mean, again, all these movies are always kind of like, watching, well-to-do white people throw money around is kind of like, oh, I'm glad you can spend every night sitting at a bar buying drinks. Meanwhile, it's like $15 for a drink around here. I'm going maybe once a month if I'm lucky. Who's got money to throw away on drinks like this?
Well, that's the difference between LA and Baltimore, I think, is it's a the income level in LA is probably a lot higher. I mean, we see that Ryan Gosling's character basically has inherited wealth
Yeah.
and so he's able to do that. But who eats at a bar every night? I mean, he's there eating half a hamburger and I'm like, what?
I do not know. And how do you
This
eat
is
bar
Los
food?
Angeles.
How do you eat bar food every night and still stay in such great shape?
Yeah. There's some real mysteries in that film. All right. I think our head-to-head comparison pretty much sums up where we're going to go as we select a winner here. But we do have 5 questions that we ask every week. So here we go. Number 1, which film is more rewatchable?
Crazy Stupid Love is definitely more rewatchable.
I don't know. As bad as I think He's Just Not That Into You is, I don't know. I might sit down and watch it again.
I mean,
It's
I
hard to
watched both
say.
of these movies multiple times this week, like twice. Yeah, I mean, He's Just Not That Into You. I definitely found myself by like the third time I was zipping through most of it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, if that were on, I wouldn't turn it off. But if I were to seek out one of these two, maybe that should be the question for me. Which one would I purchase on Blu-ray? And it would probably be Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, you're right. It's a different question. Like 20 years ago, what we would be talking about is, if you came across this movie on cable, would you sit and watch it? But since no one does that anymore, the question becomes, would you seek it out and buy it and put it on? Because that's what you do nowadays. You have to choose everything that you watch. So it is a different question.
Okay, number 2, would you want to hang out with one of the leads from either of these films? I mean, lead is kind of in quotes here because they're ensembles. So anybody.
Yeah, I think that there's quite a few likable characters in these movies. Oh, I mean, I think Cal's very likable. Who would want to hang out with him? Most of the people in Crazy Stupid Love are decent people. I wouldn't mind hanging out with him, except the Josh Groban character, who's exhausting.
But David Lindhagen.
Right. I mean, David Lindhagen seems like an all right guy. I mean, he doesn't seem like that much of a
does.
jerk.
Yeah,
Come on.
I think he's okay.
At dinner, he was very charming. If you think about it, even in that scene, he was a very charming guy. Nothing
Yeah,
wrong
I
with him.
liked him. I mean, he is a homewrecker, but
That is fair. He's just not that into you. I mean, who wouldn't want to hang out with the Ben Affleck character? He seems like a wonderful human being.
I think the people I would want to hang out with, this really speaks to who I am, because a few weeks ago when we did Big, I wanted to hang out with Robert Loggia and Billy. That's who I wanted, because I felt like I was right in the middle. And this week, I feel like I would fit in nicely sandwiched between Cal and Jacob. So Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling, because I feel like they're, Cal is kind of this buttoned up dad, and Ryan Gosling, despite having found a partner, still has remnants of that sort of interesting lifestyle of a single man. I would fall into the middle of that, I think. I would also encourage John Carroll Lynch to come just because I want to hang out with him, period. So I would love, like a suburban baseball game excursion or something. I think that would be fun. Yeah, that's really it. I don't know. Emma Stone's character is always fun. I mean, I would just rather hang out with Emma Stone, I think. But Ben Affleck too. Like, just want to take a ride on the boat through the Inner Harbor. Is this a career peak or valley for any of the main players?
Yeah, it's definitely a career peak for Kevin Connolly, right?
Oh, that's true.
I mean, Entourage is still going on, and he's in a romantic comedy with a bunch of other huge actors. He's got to think, my career is going to explode. So this is absolutely a peak for him.
So yeah. So this year in particular is the year of Kevin Connolly.
It could also be argued that this is probably the around the peak of where Drew Barrymore is as an actress. If you look at her career arc, I mean, after this, she really starts acting less. She does the Santa Clarita Diet, which is that Netflix show, which she does for like 3 seasons, but no one really even watched that. But in terms of doing projects, like movie projects that people know, she was still making movies with Adam Sandler around here. I mean, she's only maybe 7 years removed from Charlie's Angels. Yeah, she's still doing a lot of work here. I mean, she made Whip It the same year. She may go in the distance the following year with Justin Lawless. She's still working consistently. I mean, after this, she definitely starts to move away from acting a little more, and now she has the talk show. So it could be argued as far as like an acting peak. This may be hers.
I would argue E.T. or Firestarter, but
well, that's fair. It's hard to say someone peaked at 8 though. So
yeah,
we're talking about adult Drew Barrymore. How's that?
I do think that Whip It, I could be wrong, but I think that was the first film that her company Flower Films produced. So I think she really starts leaning into the production at this time, and this was kind of the beginning of that. So maybe she just switched hats a little bit.
That's what I mean. So as far as an acting peak, because obviously, I mean, she has a very successful talk show now. I mean, she does produce stuff. But I think, she's moved away from acting on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Would one of these films be better if Steven Spielberg directed it?
That's what we realized. As I said, I feel like romantic comedies are probably the one genre that I don't necessarily trust that Steven Spielberg would excel at.
Yeah, not his wheelhouse. So no, I don't think so. Would either film be better if you swapped lead actors? That's kind of a tricky one again because of the ensemble.
It is tricky, but no, I don't think you could slot anyone from He's Just That Into You into Crazy Stupid Love and have it be a better movie.
Do you switch Justin Long and Ryan Gosling? Is that a better?
I was going to say you could put Ryan Gosling into He's Just Not That Into You and probably make it better.
Do you switch Jennifer Goodwin and Steve Carell? is that a better movie? Because those are really the only two analogs that these films have, essentially. I mean, they're kind of at the center of it and the mentor-mentee sort of thing.
You're right.
So it's hard to go around that. But otherwise it's just sort of anonymous, ultimately. Okay, well, I think we've pretty much decided what the better film is this week. Before we do announce, let's go to our poll results from online. Again, as we always say, follow us at Movie Throwdown Pod on social media. We put up polls every week. That's Threads, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Had over almost 70 votes this week. So people are really showing up, which is great. Primarily on YouTube, which is interesting. 34 to 32. Very much a picture finish here. So what do you think won?
I mean, what I assume would win. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Crazy Stupid Love edges out He's Just Not That Into You with 34 votes. Much closer than I anticipated.
Say, wow.
I mean, I have to ask because last week Milk Money beat out. Was it last week? There was a week recently where something won. Yeah. So you never know how the votes are going to go online. But yeah, the masses have spoken. We are aligned. Crazy Stupid Love is our winner this week. Highly recommend watching it. It's on Netflix right now, I think. So find it there. You can also find He's Just Not That Into You on Hulu. But if you have to pick Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes.
Okay, that's it for another week. Let's talk about next week's episode. We're heading into March, and we have a fun battle between two films, one of which also stars Ryan Gosling. On the surface, these don't have much in common other than just a word in the title, but I'm here to tell you that that's really all it takes on this show. So I think it's going to be fun. We're going to match 2016's The Nice Guys up against 2010's The Other Guys. Both comedies, I guess, both buddy cop movies. So maybe there's a little more there than just the title, but I'm really excited to talk about these because I know you love The Other Guys and I really love The Nice Guy. Or
yeah, I
other
think
way
we're going to
around.
find
you
more
really love
similarities than you think in these movies.
Yeah, I think so too. So really looking forward to it. So join us for that. Again, follow us on social media. Do rate and review us and subscribe. I mean, it really helps. I know every podcast says that, but we would love to pick up a little more traction. So do that. And yeah, we're at Movie Throwdown Pod everywhere. And join us again next week for The Nice Guys versus The Other Guys. We will see you then. So long.